today we will be discussing about sewage utilization for afforestation. The objectives for today's study will be to understand the sewage pollution as a global problem. We will understand the concept of sewage maintenance, and thirdly, we will go into the use of sewage waste in afforestation by means of various case studies. Now, understanding sewage pollution as a global problem. The lack of adequate sanitation for human is a staggering problem. According to reports from World Health Organization 2015 and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation 2020, at least 4.5 billion people live without or have inadequate sanitation. In most sub-Saharan African countries and also in many tropical islands, more than 50% of the population lacks any form of sanitization. This is a report which was published in UNICEF 2019. Even in countries with high coverage of modern sanitization facilities, poor design or lack of commitment to maintain the infrastructure leads to massive pollution via discharge of these sewage wastes directly into the surface and in groundwaters. Annually, it is said that more than 1.2 trillion gallons of untreated sewage waste, storm waters, and industrial waste flows into the United States River because of the overburdened treatment systems. It is also reported that annually almost 27 billion gallons of untreated sewage flow into the New York harbor alone. While it is widely recognized that sewage contamination of surface water is a global threat to public health, recent researchers have also revealed that water contaminated by sewage pollution can vastly affect the wildlife and natural habitat as well. The plants and wildlife living in or around the contaminated water regions often accumulate toxins and pathogens found in the sewage waste. For example, the juvenile salmons, which are captured within several hundreds of meters of wastewater treatment plant fallout site, are tested positive for more than 40 sewage-borne pathogens and contaminants. Likewise, various kinds of heavy metal contaminations are also found in predatory fish, which can be correlated with the increasing sewage pollutions in those waters. Pathogens found in sewage pollutions that has been shown to cause widespread disease in humans have also recently started to show white pox disease in most important habitat-forming corals in the Caribbean coast. Now let us come to the impact of sewage on water and land surfaces. Let's start with the impact on water. In India, the human population has increased over 1 billion over the last 60 years, and the number of severely polluted rivers have also increased dramatically. Between 2009 to 2014, the number of polluted rivers have increased more than double, that is from 121 it has gone to 275 as per the reports of Central Pollution Control Board 2015. Now, a primary cause of this elevated pollution can be directed to the dumping of untreated waste from rapidly expanding cities. Sewage pollution also threats the waterways in various developed countries. A common example is in US, sewage pollution is severe in freshwater ways in the cities of New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, etc. In heavily polluted freshwater areas, sewage discharge leads to dangerously low oxygen levels. As bacteria starts decomposing, it increases the load of organic matter. Therefore, there is a sharp depletion in the oxygen content. Without enough oxygen, the dead zones occur in the water. Fish and shellfish become stressed with low or no oxygen supply and thus becomes more susceptible to various kinds of diseases. Large die-offs takes place for fishes and mussels. Various freshwater animals such as fish, mussels and insects also show elevated levels of various kinds of endocrine disruptors in water experiencing high sewage pollution. In amphibians, high level of sewage pollution and runoffs in urban areas have recently been identified as a primary driver for skewed sex ratios as well. Now let us come to the impact of sewage waste on land. The use of sewage effluents as fertilizer and to irrigate croplands is a common practice across the world. Because these effluents are typically untreated and given likely the presence of various heavy metals, pharmaceuticals, endocrine disruptive chemicals, hydrocarbons, they possess a multitude of threat to both human and nature. Studies have quantified that heavy metals in soil, vegetations, grasslands, vegetables, milks sourced from an area near a sewage-polluted river in India shows high concentration in all sample categories beyond the recommended concentration for human consumption of zinc, nickel, lead, raising concerns for both human and wildlife that may be consumed by the local plants. Since pollution levels in Indian River are norm and not the exception for most Indian rivers, heavy metal contamination of wildlife, plants and human foods are also likely to be high and widespread across the landmass. A recent comprehensive review by Manzetti and van der Spoel in 2015 showed the impact of sewage on terrestrial ecosystem, where they highlighted that the reduction in biodiversity due to disposal of treated or untreated sewage sludge on the surface of wetlands and bottomlands of forest. The practice is even carried out in many developed countries of Europe, USA and China. Wetland and forest has been chosen as the primary candidate for ecosystem to receive the sludge additions, often referred to as the soil amendments, because they are highly productive plants in this habitat which can readily take up the nutrients such as ammonia, nitrates and phosphates which are associated with the sewage waste. A review of this practice, however, reveals that rather than increasing plant growth as predicted, the sludge rather decreases the plant growths and lowers both animal and plant biodiversity. This occurs because sludge layered on the soil is often highly contaminated with toxic chemicals which are also taken up by the grasses and eventually the animals in the food web that relies on those plants. Now, heavy metal and other contaminants can spread to nearby ecosystem as well through groundwater contamination as well as through the food wave carried by deer, moose, bear, etc. Widespread heavy metal contamination leads to premature plant and animal death and decreased plant-associated diversity in response to both decrease in plant quality as food and essential habitat for birds and insects. Various kinds of endocrine disruptive chemicals known as EDCs are very common in household sewage, presents additional problem in terrestrial environment. While earlier researchers conducted in labs linked to agricultural pesticides to changes of sex organs in amphibian, recent field studies which were conducted in the northeastern USA have instead linked the increased intersex traits in male frogs to proximity to sources of household waste. Importantly, in compared to field surveys of rural landscapes, there was found to be no positive relationship between the intersex frogs and agricultural activities, whereas in suburban and urban environment, both positive correlation was established. Another author suggested that the pathway could explain this pattern could be from leakage of septic and sewer systems in urban and suburban environments where agricultural practices were mostly absent. Now, before we further go, let's understand the type and nature of wastewater. Now, wastewater is basically the water which is used either by residential or non-residential communities. About 99 to 99.94% of wastewater is mostly liquid, that is in water form, and the rest is a solid waste. Unless properly treated, wastewater can harm public health and environment. However, it is defined as liquid waste normally collected in sewer system and processed in a treatment plant. Wastewater from residential areas comprises of two major components. One is the black water, which is the toilet discharge, and second is the grey water, which is the shower, washing machine and kitchen sink discharge. On the other hand, the sewer sludge is defined by the U.S. Environment Protection Agency, that is US EPA 1993, as the primarily organic solid product yielded by the municipal wastewater treatment process that can be efficiently artificially and beneficially recycled for soil amendments. It is defined by the Victorian EPA, which was published in the year 2000, as stabilized organic solids derived from biological treatment processes which can be managed safely and sustainably and can be utilized for their nutrients, soil conditioning, energy, and other values. Sludge is a heterogeneous matter varying in composition from city to city or even from day to day. Now, municipal sewer sludge consists of organic materials, mainly dead bacterial cells, and various forms of inorganic components in the forms of their oxides and salts. The composition of sewage sludge is mainly dependent upon the population density and that population habits, in addition to the proportion and nature of the community's industrial base. Concentration of plant macronutrients in sewer sludge varies widely. Averaging median concentration of a typical sewage sludge would contain 3.2% of nitrogen, 1.4% of potassium, and 2.3% of phosphorus. Except for potassium, these nutrient values are similar to those of animal manure. Potassium content of sewage sludge is inherently low because most potassium compounds are water soluble and remaining the sewage effluents or in aqueous fraction during slow sludge watering. By the same mechanism, a portion of inorganic nitrogen, particularly ammonia, which is enriched during sludge digestion, can be lost. However, organic nitrogen by far has the largest fraction, that is 50 to 90% of the total nitrogen content in any sludge. Unlike nitrogen, only 10 to 30% of the total phosphorus in anaerobic sludge is organic phosphorus. The remaining of the phosphorus is in inorganic state in form of calcium, iron, or aluminum phosphates. And phosphorus is sorbent on amorphous materials like iron, aluminum, and manganese hydrous oxides. Sewage may vary considerably in composition and strength from place to place owing to their marked difference in dietary habit of people, composition of trade waste, and water consumption. The strength of sewage is determined by the amount of oxygen required to oxidize completely. Chemical and biological oxygen demand, that is COD and BOD respectively, are strong and easy assessing factors for water purity. Also, there are variations in composition between domestic and industrial sewage, the latter containing more pollutants in terms of heavy metals, bacterial loads, and other toxic ingredients, while the domestic sewage is very rich in anaerobes when it is raw, but it gradually transforms to enriched source after the treatment is done. Sewage contains living matters, especially bacteria and protozoa. Domestic sewage has been reported to contain 250 to 400 ppm of organic carbon, 80 to 120 ppm of total nitrogen, resulting in a high C/N, that is carbon is to nitrogen ratio, which is coming around 3:1. Industrial sewage may contain more organic carbon and hence they may have a higher carbon to nitrogen ratio. Nitrogen in sewage is present partially as organically bound element and partially as ammoniacal nitrogen. Now, before we move further, it's time for a small quiz. What are the two components of wastewater from residential areas? A. Grey water and yellow water. Option B. Solid and liquid waste. Option C. Black water and grey water. And option D. Biodegradable and non-biodegradable wastes. And the right answer is option C. Black water and grey water. Now we will be talking about trees in purification of wastewater. Plants and trees have been traditionally valued for their role in cleaning the air, generating wood, and generating a large quantity of biomass. Trees such as eucalyptus, poplar, salix are used for short rotation for biomass energy generation. Now, if these plants are irrigated with grey water, then what will happen? That is the basic concept for tree purification of wastewater. Domestic water is mostly enriched with nitrates, phosphates, sodium, and potassium. When this water is used for irrigation, the root of the plants and trees suck up the pollutants and leave behind the cleaner water. The pollutants of wastewater acts as nutrients for trees and plants and also helps the yield for higher wooden biomass. The process of uptake of pollution from wastewater through trees and conversion into less toxic form is known as dendroremediation. When plants perform the same thing, it is known as phytoremediation. These techniques are almost more cost-effective than conventional wastewater treatment. Casuarina and Dendrocalamus can reduce nitrogen by 61 to 76%, phosphorus by 18 to 70%, and biological oxygen demand by 80 to 94% from wastewater. This process of dendroremediation or phytoremediation involves dendro or phytoextraction, dendrodegradation or phytodegradation, dendrostabilization, dendrovolatilization, rhizodegradation, rhizofiltration, and rhizopurification. Now we will go into the use of wastewater in forestry and afforestation on various case studies. First, we will be talking about South Africa in Durban. Experimenting with fecal sludge in the outskirts of Durban. In recent trials from Durban, South Africa, where fecal sludge from pit latrines were buried using deep row entrenchments. And after that, trees were planted over that area, leaving about a meter of soil between the sludge and the tree surface. The first trials were conducted based on a small scale where fruit trees were planted over the buried sludge. Results from those trials suggested that the sludge improved tree growth and health. More recently, larger scale trials were held with fast-growing eucalyptus. The experiment showed similar results. Trees' growth on sites where sludge were applied was markedly better. What is more, was monitoring did not detect any groundwater pollution and has shown a complete pathogen die-off after 3 to 4 years. Using sludge from pit latrines for planted forest and tree-based landscapes restoration proved to be a promising alternative. Naturally, there are risks like groundwater contamination, so it was important that the distance from groundwater body is sufficiently far enough that the soils are not too porous. Therefore, if applied properly, this can be a safe sludge treatment option which is simple, cost-effective, and offers a great alternative to mineral fertilizers. Next comes the greening desert with treated wastewater, which occurred throughout the North African countries. In drylands where people's livelihoods are hindered by water scarcity and environmental degradation is high, tree planting can enhance the ecosystem services. FAO has been promoting the use of treated wastewater to irrigate forests and trees since the 1990s and currently is working on several tree-based landscape restoration projects in Algeria, Egypt, Morocco, and Tunisia. In Algeria, constructed wetlands were used to filter the wastewater and to irrigate planted forests. According to Elaine Springay of FAO, irrigating this waste condition for agricultures are better, so farmers can improve their incomes and food security. In addition, using treated wastewater for irrigation reduces the burden on fresh water, which is a big bonus for dryland areas. Finally, this approach can improve the water quality and pollution in an area of application since wastewater goes through treatment and is not discharged directly into the water bodies or to the desert. Landscape restoration activities was vastly promoted on an international level through frameworks like the Bond Challenge and the AFR 100. Using treated water can help to achieve the goals of these policies. Now, replacing the mineral fertilizers with digestate in Sweden. Digestate by far is a byproduct from anaerobic digestion of biodegradable waste and can be produced from sweat, sludge, and is a nutrient-rich substance which is often used as a soil conditioner. Ensuring it is free from pathogen to avoid water and soil pollution is tricky, but it can be done. One solution is a certification standard. Anders Finsen, a Swedish Water and Wastewater Association representative, presented an excellent example of Swedish certification system called REVAC or REVAQ designed to ensure digestate is free from pathogens and heavy metals. According to Finsen, today more than half of the Swedish population is connected to a wastewater treatment plant certified through the system of REVAC. Development and performance of REVAC system is stimulated through a set of goals, which are avoid unacceptable accumulation of metals or undesired organic substances on agricultural land in long term, have no accumulation of cadmium from 2025, and reduce the accumulation of various non-essential substances to a maximum of 0.2% per year from 2025. The framework is forward-looking so users can improve gradually. REVAQ or REVAC certified digestate contains a lot of phosphorus, nitrogen, micronutrients and organic matters, and is thus an excellent alternative to regulate mineral fertilizers. If we connect the entire Swedish population to REVAC certified wastewater plants and improve the acceptance of digestate in agriculture, we can cut the use of mineral fertilizer by 50%, which was highlighted by Finsen. Now, before we move further ahead, another small quiz. Digestate is option A, a byproduct from anaerobic digestion of biodegradable waste that can be produced from sweat sludge. Option B, toilet discharge. Option C, inorganic wastewater. And option D, a byproduct from anaerobic digestion of plastic waste. And the right answer is a byproduct from anaerobic digestion of biodegradable waste that can be produced from sweat sludge. Now we will talk about the forestry in Egypt, which is one of the largest and one of the most oldest forestry attempt that has been taken based on wastewater. Egypt offers a great opportunity for large-scale afforestation due to its availability of sufficient sewage water and its desert lands. After the basic treatment, sewage water can be efficiently used as a resource for the production of wood, woody biomass, and biofuel, and also for carbon trading. The cause of non-existing forest in Egypt is not only due to the climatic conditions and scarcity of rainfalls, but it is also as a result of rapid urbanization and the focus on food production for meeting the needs of rapidly increasing population. Although the geographical area of Egypt is pretty large, exceeding 1 million kilometers square, desert land dominates over 96% of the total land area, with little scattered shrub vegetations. Most of the country's vegetation grows in the Nile Delta Valley and is known as the most extensive oasis across the world. The Nile Delta and Valley have a rich variety of tree species, of which some are indigenous while some are exotic. Over thousands of years ago, during the Fatimids era, Egypt was the first country in the world to establish a national forest organization. At the time, usage of wood was well managed, mainly used in the construction of ships. However, today, FAO in a report of 2010 estimated that the total area of 691 kilometers square with nearly 74 million standing trees are present in Egypt. The country has almost no natural forest and it only relies on some relic of nature woodlands on the slope of the Mount Elba in the south of the country and its sparse and scattered mangroves along the Red Sea coast. Forestry in Egypt is mainly based on artificial forest, with the most common species being casuarina and eucalyptus. According to FAO, Egypt achieved a rate of 3.3 annual rate of change in forest cover between the year 1990 and 2000, which was the highest annual increase among other African countries, where over the same period of time, the average annual rate of change for the whole African continent was minus 0.8%. This increase in forest area was due to the establishment of National Program for the Safe Use of Treated Sewage Waste for Afforestation, which started in early to mid-1990s. Within the framework of this program, a pilot project was conducted on over 4,000 hectares of spread across the country to determine the success and failure of afforestation using basic treated sludge water. The afforestation include different species like acacia, casuarina, cupressus, eucalyptus, African mahogany, neem, pine, in addition to jatropha and jojoba as biofuel crops. The result of this pilot project clearly revealed that sewage water can be used for establishment of new plantations in desert lands and showed high potential for afforestation of multi-species of socio-economic importance. Based on the results of the pilot project and upon a memorandum of understanding between the Egyptian Ministry of State of Environmental Affairs and the Institute of Silviculture at TUM Munich in 2007, the Institute of Silviculture proposed a concept of establishment of plantation forests and development of sustainable forestry in desert lands of Egypt using sewage wastewater. The concept laid emphasis on improvement of productivity, quality, technology, cost effectiveness, and economic returns on these plantation forests. Therefore, an accompanying applied research was proposed with the main objective to develop decision support system for the sustainable management of plantation forest in the arid region, including wastewater management. The supporting scientific work was carried out by highly qualified German and Egyptian scientists from the Institute of Silviculture TUM Munich, Department of Agricultural Engineering Ain Shams University, Department of Forestry and Wood Technology University of Alexandria, Institute of Hydraulic and Water Resource Engineering TUM, Institute of Water Quality Control TUM, Agriculture Research Center, Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation of both Egypt and Germany. The Bavarian state government in Germany has expressed support to the afforestation attempts in Egypt by providing technical assistance in form of technology transfer and support in capacity building. Expert consultation was provided by the Bavarian State Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry and the Institute of Silviculture. In 2012, the German Academic Exchange Services TAAD provided funds to support the implementation of a part of the research activity assembling of forest management knowledge at Egyptian universities, the optimization of afforestation program, and in addition to strengthen the research cooperation in forest and water resource management, scientific exchange through further partnership between Germany and Egypt was established. The scientific team, in collaboration with Under-Secretariat for Afforestation and Environment of the Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation, could gain important scientific information and attain achievement towards successful realization of afforestation in Egypt. It was shown that the potential of forest growing in Egypt is high. 134 forestry relevant tree species were only growing in 2 parks of Cairo. El Kitab and Monsalt determined the yield of some tree species of plantation forest in Egypt, which came to be pretty high, and estimated that the volume achieved in Egypt is approximately 4.5 times higher than Germany, the leading country of forestry in entire Europe. According to various researchers, the feasibility of afforestation in Egypt using sewage water and concluded its environmental, social, and economic feasibility to be pretty high. It was estimated that an internal rate of return exceeding 12% by afforesting 1,000 hectares of desert land can be achieved by using only 14 tree species that were selected on a scientific basis by the German and Egyptian scientific team. These species included the precious hardwood trees including white teak, African mahogany, Outcunia yellowwood, teak. Then comes the hardwood species like mangium or black wattle, neem or Indian lilac, lemon-scented gum, river red gum. Then comes the softwood species like Caribbean pine, Canary Island pine. Next comes the biofuel crops like jatropha and jojoba. And finally the windbreak species like orange wattle and casuarina. Within the framework of this collaboration, many workshops were conducted to deal with the proper treatment of waste management. The Forest Department will be soon established at the Faculty of Agriculture at Cairo universities. The achievements have awakened the interest of various international organizations as well. Forest Finance Group of Bonn, Germany, a leading organization in Germany in forest investment and in the development and operation of sustainable forest product, is considerably supporting the development of afforestation in Egypt in commercial application and also in forest carbon trading. Large-scale afforestation in arid regions supports innovative solutions to actual national and global challenges such as climate change, renewable energy, food security, and management of resources. Large-scale afforestation may also stimulate cloud formation and may result in rainfall that the country currently needs to expand its agriculture productions for. Their conclusion was supported by a press release by the University of Hohenheim and a recent study by Becker et al. In 2013. Becker suggested that large-scale plantation of Jatropha curcus in hot, dry coastal areas can subsequently capture carbon dioxide from atmosphere. The authors conducted high-resolution simulations using advanced land surface atmospheric model and concluded that large-scale plantation of Jatropha curcus, approximately about 10,000 kilometers square, could lead to a reduction in mean surface temperature and an onset or increase in rain and dewfall at a regional level. To ensure sustainability and ecological and economic success of large-scale afforestation, emphasis should be laid on political, scientific, economic collaboration. This is achieved by a viable framework and optimal planning at the political level, keeping scientific environment, also competence, experience, possibilities, and prospects in mind. Now we will be discussing about the attempts of afforestation in Jaipur, Rajasthan of India. An unique method of afforestation by sewage irrigation is being carried out at the World Forest Arboretum in Jaipur, Rajasthan, India by the Silviculture Wing of the State Forest Department. The water from sewage canal of Jawaharnagar Gandanalhala in the southern part of the city adjoining the main campus of University of Rajasthan is being used for irrigation of trees and plantation for this arboretum. The arboretum is spread over nearly 185 hectares of rocky land which was previously barren and hostile. It is situated in the foothills of the ancient Aravalli range near the Jhalana in Jaipur. There is a wide vegetation in this arboretum consisting of trees, shrubs, herbs, climbers, some wild but mostly introduced from families of diverse plant groups. Most important kind of vegetation which has been led in this arboretum includes eucalyptus, camaldulensis and Leuciana leucocephala, which are found to respond very well to sewage irrigation. Good results have already been achieved by using various kinds of water hyacinths and other floaters like lemna as well. Periodically, the weeds although needs to be harvested and fresh crops needs to be grown, but still within approximately 20 days the water is sufficiently purified and becomes adequately fit for silviculture, pisciculture and other cultural uses. Apart from their water cleansing properties, these kind of plants, mostly Eichhornia and Lemna, can be composted and be used either as a source of biogas like methane or for biomanuring. Sewage silviculture provides at least 3 ecological benefits, which includes water conservation, environmental sanitation, and afforestation simultaneously. Therefore, in conclusion, we can say that the lack of adequate sanitation for human is, although a staggering problem, recent research reveals that water contamination by sewage pollution not only affects the human lives, but it also affects wildlife and natural habitat. Plants and wildlife living in and around these contaminated water regions often accumulate toxins and pathogens formed in the sewage. In India, human population has increased drastically, with which the number of polluted rivers has increased more than double. Trees such as eucalyptus, poplar, salix can be helped in purifying wastewater, while we can also generate higher biomass from these trees, leading to a greater economic benefits. Various countries across the globe like Sweden, North African countries, Egypt, and India also has attempted afforestation with sewage, sludge and wastewater. Although these kind of practices are still in their pilot stage, we can expect that with greater scientific inputs and greater economic inputs, the use of sewage water for attempted afforestation can be increased more and more for a sustainable and green environment tomorrow. Thank you.